The Democratic Alliance and the Gauteng provincial government have accused each other of using the courts for political point scoring in the tussle for the city of Tshwane. The metro has been dysfunctional since February after the relationship between the DA and the economic freedom fighters began to sour in November. As the politicians slug it out, residents, however, have borne the brunt. A crippling water crisis in Hammanskraal has seen the community without drinkable water for months now. Joining me for a discussion on this is Mr. Levy Ndou, political analyst. Good to have you with us this afternoon, Mr. Ndou. Now, what is currently happening now and the tension that exists between the various parties in coalitions, what does this mean for future coalitions for the Democratic Alliance? And perhaps just to put this into context a little bit, Mr. Ndou, in the conference that they're currently having now, they are proposing what they called, or adopting rather, what they call a value-based approach to local government. And what they're saying is that this means that they will also be picking their partners carefully. What exactly does this mean in the context of where we are and of our recent past?
Good afternoon, Thami. Good afternoon to the viewers at home. I think we need to start by looking at the political background, which is that the dominance of the ANC in the past elections over 20 years, and now with their decline, has opened up space for coalition governments. And if one is to look at the events that has been going on politically in relation to party relations, we have had cooperations or coalitions in the past, but as we move towards to 2016, that is where we actually saw the gradual decline of the ANC as the ruling party and gave way to coalitions, especially in the three metros, Johannesburg, Tshwane, and Nelson Mandela. But one must indicate this one, that the relationship that existed amongst these other political parties was informed by a number of factors. Factor number one is that political parties were quite emotional, and what they did was that their relationship was not based on any ideology. They were based on a common enemy, and the common enemy was the ANC. Another aspect that we need to look at as well is that what they were focusing on when they took over power was to look at the mistakes that the ANC had actually committed and try their best to expose the ANC. Another aspect that we need to look at is that because they came into this relationship based on emotions and a common enemy, it then became a bit difficult for them to manage their relations. And that is why you had a situation where in the three metros that I've actually mentioned, there have always been serious political problems. There have been more meetings of coalitions than meetings that are supposed to be there to deal with matters affecting citizens. Now, the approach of the Democratic Alliance might be relevant because the Democratic Alliance might have learned a lesson in these coalitions that they were part of, and the lesson has been that their relations were not properly principled. They did not inform ordinary citizens on the ground. I think they've also learned that in these different coalitions, they would always have certain positions where they have to compromise. But in the main, citizens were always the victims in these coalitions. Another last aspect will be that coalitions in local government has created a lot of instability, especially in the sense that there has always been the change of leadership. The change of leadership in the city of Johannesburg, change of leadership in the city of Tshwane, and the same with Nelson Mandela Bay. That is a good recipe for political instability.
Now, Mr. Ndou, how much, if at all, did these coalitions with the EFF in Tshwane and Johannesburg, and I guess with the ANC as well, hurt the party among its conservative support base?
Firstly, we need to look at the background. As I've indicated, these were emotional relations. These relationships were based on emotions, and they were based on the fact that they had a common enemy. And both parties have suffered because of this relationship that they actually entered into. For obvious reasons, the conservatives within the DA would constantly question the leadership. Why did you enter into a relationship with the economic freedom fighters, for an example? Because in terms of ideology, these two parties are quite far apart. And obviously, the possibility will be that it will not be easy for the two parties to manage their relationship. And that is why some within the DA have actually been saying, we have actually lost support of some people, of some conservatives within our ranks, who actually had to vote with other parties because of this kind of mistakes that we entered into. But there is another element that we need to look at. The poor performance of the ANC, the focus of the ANC on factions and other matters, makes the ANC to lose support and then provide fertile ground for oppositions to come with coalition. And whether we like it or not, coalitions are going to be here to stay, but what is central will be how different political parties manage them.
And looking at the parties, the available parties, who are the likely candidates for possible coalitions for the Democratic Alliance moving forward?
Well, I think with coalitions, political parties have to open up and actually identify areas where there are commonalities. And with the growth of the EFF, you might find a situation where the Democratic Party would find a better friend in the EFF than in the ANC, which has been the case since 2016. But I think what is important is to develop guidelines and principles that will be able, or that will enable both parties to manage these coalitions in a manner that they become successful, that they are able to provide services, and at the end of the day, ordinary citizens do not suffer. So any party that is available, which is not providing unrealistic demands, can also be a good partner in a coalition.
And we'll leave it at that for this evening. Thank you very much, Mr. Ndou. That's Mr. Levy Ndou, political analyst there, as he looks at coalitions regarding the Democratic Alliance.